Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Danni Smith.
Hello, everybody.
It's also part of the Reiki lifestyle team. And so today, what we're going to be talking about, or tonight, afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, we will be continuing kind of our discussion from last week about new beginnings. So, as we said last week, or in the last video, that it's springtime here where we're at in the northern hemisphere. Some of you I know in the southern hemisphere feel this in fall as well. I know fall is another time for me to feel very motivated about new beginnings. That springtime is always a really great time for that. We're in the season of Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And then also we've had these really big planetary shifts that have just happened with Pluto, Saturn, some of the other ones as well. So it is always a good time to kind of be thinking about this. If you, are thinking about new beginnings, or you feel maybe that you even might be stuck and not knowing what those are, you can check out our last video on that, where we talked a lot about that. And then the journey that we did, guided journey, it's a guided journey. You can go ahead and do that, because it was a lot about, excuse me, a lot about inspiration, kind of even just figuring those out. And so what we're going to be talking about today is how you can go into, like what your first step is. So Danni's going to be kind of starting us with that, but I just wanted to make a few announcements before we did that. Again, you can always find us at reikilifestyle.com. That's where our class schedule is, how you can get a hold of us to make sessions. Excuse me, one second. So how you can do sessions, we have free downloads on there. We have our articles, and then also we have a podcast. You can find that on our YouTube as well, but our podcast is released on all of the podcast platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, it's under the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. And one of the things that we realized is that it's fantastic to go and find our guided journeys on YouTube, but we do know we're not a monetized channel on there. And so we don't actually have the option to turn off ads. And some of the feedback that we've been getting is on our guided meditations and journeys, YouTube has decided to play ads in the middle of them. They're called mid-roll ads. And we actually don't have any control over that unless we make the decision to monetize the channel. And we just haven't at this point. And so we've heard some feedback that it can be quite disruptive. So unless you have YouTube Premium, you are going to hear those ads either at the beginning of a video on YouTube, or a lot of times they'll play them in the middle. But it's kind of nice to watch like our informational videos on YouTube, because sometimes we have visuals, things like that. But if you want to do the guided journeys, invocations, meditations, you can do those on our podcast. And you can do those on our podcast, and they don't have any ads on them. So again, you can just go to podcast platforms, search the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. You can download them. They're in audio only, and they won't be disrupted by the ads. So just a little suggestion. It's not, you don't have to do that, but it's just a little tip. Steve put in the chat, YouTube Premium is worth it in general, just to never have ads. So anyways, my husband has YouTube Premium and I don't, and it is quite a bit of a difference in how many benefits you have for YouTube Premium. But if that's not an option for you, you can go to the podcast for free on all of the different platforms, and you can listen to those guided meditations, and you won't have the ads in them. So there's that piece. so you have that, the podcast. Oh, and then other announcements. We do have some classes coming up. We have Colleen is teaching human Reiki at the beginning of May. So she has a Reiki master, then a Reiki 1 and 2, right, Danni? It goes in that order. So it's Reiki master and then a Reiki 1 and 2. So the Reiki master is during the week, and then the Reiki 1 and 2 is on the weekend. That's online course. And she'll have just been getting back from Japan and Mount Kurama. I think it's like the next weekend. So she's going to have all of that wonderful energy. It's a really special energy that you kind of come back with from Mount Kurama. It's very peaceful. So she's teaching those classes. You can go to reikilifestyle.com to look into that, to sign up, and they're amazing. Then we are also teaching, Sue, Colleen, and myself are teaching Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Master in May. And you get all 3 of us as teachers. There are some prerequisites that you can look up online, but you can be from any lineage. You can look them up on the class thing. It's just, you have to have human Reiki for the level that you're taking of animal Reiki. But yeah, Sue and Colleen and I all teach it together. So you get 3 teachers. So it's a really cool experience. We're teaching it online. It's okay if you don't have any animals. We definitely take care of that, as Sue and I both have a few. So that's not an issue. And also we're 3 of the 4 co-authors of the course and the manual. That is an official ICRT course. So you get a lot of bang for your buck in those classes. And, we honor all teachers of animal Reiki and human Reiki, but it is just a little added bonus of that class. Again, so you can look that up on reikilifestyle.com. All right. I think those are the announcements, Danni. Yeah. Okay. So, well, why don't you go ahead and just talk a little bit about our continued subject of kind of what your next step is. All right, you've set an intention. So what's next and how do you get there? So go ahead.
Okay, well, we've had a couple questions in our chat about the seasons. Last week we talked about seasons, and for instance, winter, you're kind of hunkered down and hibernating. And autumn, you're like, you have the shoulds, like, oh, I should be doing something. And now for us, we're in spring, and that is like, what's our next step? What's like something we can do, a new beginning, something fresh, a clean page, clean slate. And so how we do it is we just begin with an idea, our imagination. And so it's like, what have you been thinking about lately? Like, what do you think about, like, when you're daydreaming, or if you're looking through a magazine and there's an article that stands out to you, and just kind of clarify, what does my new beginning want to be? Does it want to be, a health regimen? Does it want to be moving somewhere new? Does it want to be about your Reiki business? And so just for today, let's just say you want to start doing Reiki sessions. Like, how can I do that? And so you're thinking about it, it's in your mind. And so what are some ways to start, incorporating that new beginning? And for me, the first thing is kind of to forgive yourself for procrastination. It's a big one. It's like, oh, I should have been doing this. I've been a Reiki, practitioner. I've had Reiki classes for 3 years and I haven't done anything with it. And so the first thing is like, let it go, because to me, it's kind of all timing, and, just do it when it feels good. And so then also is like, look for messages. Again, like if you are driving somewhere and you see a sign that says something like, do it, just, do it now, start today, or you're behind a car and they have a sign saying, today's the day. Those are kind of some fun signs to look at and be like, oh yeah, I should be. Or a really big one could be, say you've had Reiki for a little while, and then you have a friend who just took a Reiki class and so excited, and they're like, I'm going to totally start doing Reiki sessions. I'm going to start it next week. And you're going, oh my gosh. To me, that's another sign. It's like, oh, I'm so envious. I'm like, why am I envious when I can do the same thing? So it's like, kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and whatever that feels like. And it could be really super small step. For instance, if you want to do Reiki sessions, like, okay, well, I'm just going to maybe journal about it. Or maybe, I talked last week about my pendulum. And I'm like, should I start this? Yes, no. Or just really small steps like, okay, if I were to do Reiki sessions, what would that look like? And it can just be one thing, one idea. Be like, okay, well, I know that I have a full-time job, but I do have Sundays available. And so we have, okay, so I know that I could do these sessions on Sundays and start there. Be like, okay, so when during the day does it feel like it would work for me? Be like, well, I know that I'm really busy in the mornings. So I know that I can do sessions on Sundays between noon and 6 o'clock. And then, well, how many sessions does that look like? And just be really small. And you don't have to think of all this at once and overwhelm yourself and get back into not doing anything. And so just, like I say, write down in your journal, talk to a friend. That's really good. And you can even practice with friends. Those of us that are here in this group, I know that we do that with each other. Be like, talk, be like, Rob, I'm really thinking about doing this. What do you think? And she's like, yeah, you totally could do this. And so you have your cheerleader there. And then also practicing. Colleen just had an email a couple of days ago, and it was a lady saying, well, I'm a Reiki practitioner, but my friend wants to teach Reiki, but she wants to, practice on me. And can I get another attunement? I'm like, oh, yeah. And so it's not only helping out her friend so she can practice with her friend, but, she's getting another Reiki attunement, which is really cool too. So yeah, stepping outside your comfort zone, just thinking each day is a new day, a new time, and what can get you into that vibe, that momentum. Like, start something very, very small, just one thing. And for instance, if you want to do classes, be like in the morning, like, okay, I'm going to do one thing this morning because I have my other job. So I just want to do one thing. So wake up in the morning and look on YouTube. I do this too, where I'm like, okay, I'm not quite sure what direction I want to go in, or even if I want to do this. And so I go on YouTube and I go like to the first tarot reader or the first astrology reader. And I'm just like, click on them, like, okay, what are they going to say to me? And they're like, don't stop. Come on, keep it going. You have the best idea. And I'm like, oh, thank you. That's all I needed to hear. I turn it off and I'm like, okay. And so I write down some notes of, what I want to do. So those are just some things that I do to start something new, just very, very small. And what brings me joy. And I think of how I want to feel, not how it's going to look. So how I want to feel about it is like, if it's starting a Reiki session, it's like, I want to feel really, like I'm providing assistance for somebody. And as we know, as Reiki practitioners, those of us that are, we feel great when we're giving Reiki. So I'm like, okay, I want to feel really, like I'm providing a service. And then also that, how if I want to lose weight, like, how is that going to make me feel? I don't want to think about all the diets or the exercise or what I should be doing. I'm like, how do I want to feel? I want to feel really strong. I want to feel like I have stamina. So I go for the feeling of how I want it to be. So that's how I start.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, I think really what it comes down to is that sometimes there's all of this planning, and sometimes you just have to start. So we were talking about this, and we've been talking about this quite a bit, actually, because we are in the process, starting the process. We at Reiki Lifestyle need a new website. So our website's pretty old. It was pretty custom at the time, and it's very outdated. A lot of things we can't update because it'll break the whole website. Been there, done that. It was a hard night when that happened. And so and I'm kind of the one leading the way on that. And it's funny because I'm pretty tech savvy, but I'm like, but I haven't done this process before, and the kind of the needs that we have for it are slightly, they're more than just like a one-page website. Like we need kind of not an advanced website. We're not like, we don't need that, but we need several pages and systems and things like that. So I need somebody that is going to um, be able to do that for us. So I'm like, thinking about this, I'm like, well, when it comes down to it, I really don't have any idea what the heck I'm doing. I would think that I would, but I don't. I really don't. So all I can do is just take one next step. And what it comes down to also is that I am calling in Reiki when I am making my decisions around this. And can I kind of see the end picture? Yes. But if I try to look at all of those steps in between, that is so overwhelming. Could I plan every single thing in between the end result? And right now, I can try to. And I know for me, being a left brain person, an overthinker, I love Danni's suggestion of feeling it in your body, because for me, I'm gonna go, well, what outline do I need? What Excel spreadsheet do I need? What do I need? This and this and this, because that's just the way that I am. Um, and I could try to plan out every single detail from now until, let's say it takes a year from now. I could try to plan that out. And that is like, it's paralyzing. Like it is so overwhelming. It can create it so that I don't start it. But what I'm doing in this moment with it is I'm like, okay, what is my next step? Okay, you have to find a you have to do a few things. What do we need? And what's our budget? And, so you have those few things. But past that, I'm like, okay, what's my next step? I need a web designer. So we need to find a web designer that fits our needs, and what we need for the website. So that's my next step. What's the step after that? I'm not sure yet. And it's okay. I'm just going to take this one next step, and I'm going to trust in the process, which that part is one of the hardest parts of all of it, is just trusting that when I take this step, the next step is going to highlight for me. And yes, maybe I have to do some work around it. Maybe I have to go into Reiki. Maybe I have to do the work to allow me to trust, because I know when you're taking that kind of leap off the cliff, that is a part that can be the hardest, is trusting that there's going to be the ground underneath you. And that even if you don't know this whole process, let's say it's a new process, that you can trust that once you're there, then the next step is going to be highlighted for you again, that you are just going to take that one next step after that. And then when you look back in a year from now, you can see how it's all guided for you, and how just having that trust in it, having that trust that the Reiki energy has you, that you can trust in that piece of it, that that eventually it's going to come to the end process. And there is a part of it that, there are things, external things that are out of our control that change your trajectory. There are things that are out of our control that can change your timing, that can change all of the different pieces of it. And that's a reality. That's not something that I can say, just bypass that and say, oh, just trust and it'll all be fine. There are those times that that isn't, it doesn't go in the way that you had set out when you started. And somebody put in the chat that trusting is the hardest thing. Especially, I think that's the biggest thing for so many of us. Like, you see the people that are like, I just trusted and it all worked out. And I think, how do I do that? And I want to be you, and I want to be able to do that, trust and surrender. But I know for me, that's not always a reality. Like I have to work at that piece of it. And that's really where I call on my energy work, my spiritual tools to help me in that. And also to guide me. There is this practical piece of it, right? That there is like, okay, I actually have practical steps that I need to take, and I don't know what those are, and I need to figure out what those are. So can I call in the Reiki energy and help me and help support me in that process? help guide me in the right direction, help present the next steps that I need, to help present the solutions that I need next. And can I use those tools to help me in that and just follow the path? And that's kind of one of the things too that Danny and I were talking about with this is, for me, it's like I picture it. If you've seen the movie Avatar, there's a part where they're walking and the bioluminescence lights up underneath their feet. And that's kind of how I see it. It's like, okay, I'm taking the step and the bioluminescence is highlighting in front of my foot, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. But really also it is bringing it all back to, sometimes you just have to start. You don't know where it's going to lead you. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. Sometimes you just have to start. And Colleen always says that. And she's really great at that. Like, I always said, for me, I could plan my, plan and plan and plan and never get started. And she always says, you just have to start sometimes. You just have to do that. But sometimes that first step is one of the hardest steps to make. Sometimes you don't know what that first step is. And so it's the hardest step to make. And so that's really where this energy work can come in and help, because it can release kind of some of the fears, or it can empower the courage to make that step through the fears anyways. Also, the energy work can come in and help you to know what that next step is. In the different things that we have in our life, as Danny said, we have all of these different categories within our life that we might be working on in the moment, and a lot of them simultaneously, right? As she said, our work, whether that's job, business, however you think of your work, and your finances, which are tied into that, your kind of personal life, whether that's spiritual, relationship, that kind of side of your personal life. So there's all of these different places that we, have these things that we have goals or intentions or things that we want to manifest in these different categories of our life. That is really a piece where, oh, okay, I want to get healthier, as Steve said in the chat. I want to get healthier this year. So I have this intention. All right, well, what is my first step with that? And am I going to take the first step? How do I take the first step? As Danny said, I love that, the feeling in your body of how I want to feel. I want to feel, I want to feel good in my body. I want to have, vitality. I want to be strong, all of these things. And so where is it that you want to take that first step within it? If it's a Reiki business, what's the first step of that, right? That's always a big one, or any business really, or job, if you want a promotion at work, or you want to add something into your job. It's like, how do I get there? I can see that I have this intention, but how do I take the first step to get there? And sometimes what that is, and you have to build the courage to do that. And other times you don't know what that is, and you need clarity around there. And that you also need the courage to just start somewhere. So that is where the Reiki energy, your spiritual tools, your spirit guides can come in. They can empower you. They can clarify. The mental emotional symbol is a really great one for knowing your clarity around that. Or maybe you don't have any clarity and you're like, I'm just really guided to do this and I'll see where it lands me. And that's kind of like where I'm at with the website. I know that's kind of a silly example, but that's where I'm at with the website. I'm like, I'm just guided to take this step, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see where it goes. And hopefully it all works out. And there's going to be things that I can't control that I'm going to have to work through, or there's usually some, different things, tributaries that come off of that, and that's okay. And just trust in the Reiki energy that I'm going to be paired with who I'm going to find, who I need to find for this. And I'm going to, I ask for the intention that it's all going to be with grace and ease, and that it's going to be exactly what I need. and trust that as I'm moving through this process, that that's all going to work out. Last year or 2 years ago, it was the same thing with health issues. So I had long COVID really bad. It was debilitating, where I was, completely debilitated from it. And a friend suggested somebody to go and see that she works with as, holistic person. And so I called her, and she wasn't taking new clients. And so she suggested this other clinic that works with really hard cases with kind of all sorts of health things. And it was exactly what I needed. And through a process of not just them, but other things, I think we just talked about this in a longer format on the podcast that we just released on yesterday. And I just knew that following that, and I didn't know where it was leading. I just called that one person, and then called the person that she suggested, and then called the person that they suggested. And I did this combination of holistic and a little bit of Western medicine that really helped my entire health journey with all of that. And I know for a fact, because what the intention that I set, that Reiki helped me do, and I set it in September, and then my friend suggested this like maybe 3 weeks later. She said, call this person. I set the intention that I was going to find helpful people. And I used the mental emotional symbol, because this was a case where I really needed helpful people to come in. And I remember the moment that I set that intention, and that was the intention that I needed to set. I wasn't going to be able to do this on my own. I needed helpful people. And within a couple of weeks, she gave me the number of this. And then I just followed the stream. I just followed it. I followed the trail. I followed the path. And I know for a fact that even though it seemed like Reiki wasn't the exact fix for it, because it wasn't like Reiki fixed it, just I got a Reiki session and poof, I was better. I know for a fact that setting that intention through Reiki and then following the steps that highlighted around it, and even that first step of calling somebody, and I'd been through so many practitioners and doctors, and none of it helped. And I knew that one thing highlighting was going to be the answer for me, even though I didn't know what that was. And so I just took that step. And I know for a fact that Reiki, that setting that intention and doing work around it with my spiritual tools, with my spirit guides, with the Reiki energy, using the symbols, using that mental emotional symbol to really empower it. I know that that is what led me on that path. And just using the courage, using that empowerment that Reiki can give you, that is also a part of it. Because sometimes it's scary, right? Sometimes it's a little scary to follow that. Sometimes it's scary to make that phone call. Sometimes it's scary to make the leap and to trust. And I know that was the backbone of all of it that eventually helped me to heal from that. And you can apply that to so many different things. You can apply that to a Reiki business for sure. That first post on your social media, that first call about making a web page or signing up for Wix or Squarespace, or, it's like advertising your first health food store that Joe talked about earlier, advertising there, giving your first Reiki talk, your first class, your first client, like all of that. There's the energy work behind it, and it's all takes courage, right? It all takes courage. And so the Reiki energy is what can help empower you with that. It can help with your courage. It can help with just starting. Like, I don't know, I want to have a Reiki business. I don't know where to start. Okay, I'm going to listen into the Reiki energy around this. I'm going to listen to this. Okay, it's just saying, I just need to do a session for somebody, that there's that barrier for me that is, that I need to get over. And so even if it's a volunteer chair Reiki session with a friend that you give that to, I just need to do that. And so I do that, and that starts to unfold a lot of different things. And as you're doing this, it's not to say that you're not going to come up against new things. Okay, I've done sessions. I'm comfortable with that. I have my whole thing that's good. I'm getting paid for it. Maybe they're just even volunteer for now. Now I need to teach my first class. And here I am again. And can I plan the day away with this class? Yes. But where is that first step in actually teaching that class? Okay, I'm back to the same spot. What do I do first? How do I get a student? How do I market myself? How do I do all of these things that give me at least one student for a class? All right, here's the one thing that is highlighting that I need to do next that is going to help me. And after that, things start to unravel a little bit and lay out before you. And so there's so many different things in our life that this is true for, that this is a part of the process of this. And again, I know for so many of us, that trust is one of the things that we have to work with and work through and try to trust more and more. I think as we work with Reiki and our spiritual tools more and more, that starts to get more comfortable. Like I know now with this website, I don't know what I'm doing, but I actually do have trust that it's all just going to unfold as it should. And I wouldn't have had that years ago, that it's because of the different things that I've seen through this work that I've had these experiences, that I know that I can just take this next step and the next one's going to highlight and the next one's going to highlight. I have this vision of what it's going to be at the end. Maybe something's going to happen and it'll end up different than what I envisioned now. And I know that that's okay because I know it will be where I'm supposed to be. And that's okay. There's the practical things like I'm going to make sure to have a contract. I'm going to make sure to have benchmarks. I'm going to make sure I have all of these practical things that are going to keep me protected. But I have a vision of what it's going to be. And I'm just trusting that it's just going to unfold as I need. And that's okay, even though I don't know what I'm doing. And I know what my next step is, but I don't know what the one after that is. But I'll figure it out. I'm just going to start. I'm just going to start. And I'm going to trust in the fact that I'll get there in the end. And I just know that I will eventually. And if life takes a different turn, I also kind of trust that that is going to be what's for me also. So at the same time, like, I know there are really challenging things that come up, and it's not to bypass those. But because we're talking about the subject of new beginnings, it is a big part of new beginnings. When you set intentions, you have goals, you want to manifest something, you're feeling the inspiration around a new beginning, all of these things that are a part of it, those new beginnings bring these questions up. This is part of the process with it. And just having Reiki to really empower this piece of it. So, Danni, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, I like the fact that you brought up the symbols, because that's really important too. We just have so many tools, and just simply bringing in the symbols is really a good idea. I mean, just the other day, and connecting with others. I think Steve had mentioned that, connecting with others and talking, because once we talk about it and we say it out loud, it actually becomes real, and you're not on your own. And it could even just be one person. But I mean, just like the other day, I was tax season, right? And so I'm like, oh, my tax guy that I've had for 20 years retired. And I knew this for a year, and I waited till the very last minute. And then I started getting frantic and stressed out. And so that's what I did. I just sat down and I called in the distance symbol, and I'm like, I do not know how this is going to end up. And that's another thing, is to take that out of the equation of how you think it's going to be, how it's all going to resolve, or how it's going to start. And so then I started, I'm like, let me just put it out there. And so I talked to a couple of my friends, and I'm like, do you know any tax person? And everybody's like, no. And then finally this one lady, she goes, well, yeah. And she gave me this name. She goes, call her. And so I did. And she's like, yeah, sure, I can do it. And I'm like, before the 15th or 18th. And she's like, yeah. She goes, oh, this is nothing to stress about. I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, so now it's been done. And my outcome was not to be stressed and to be feel very safe and, have the money part be doable. And it was. And so it's just like letting go of the result, the end result. So
Great example. Yeah, thank you. I like that too, talking to people, which also can be a hard part for many of us. Yeah.